welcome to the third episode of RealTalk with Claudia. And today we are talking about mental health and providing you with practical tips on how you can deal with mental health challenges. So guys, to be frank with you, this is a very exciting topic for me because actually one of the reasons why today we have this podcast, it is because this girl right here had some pretty much big mental health challenges and she wanted to overcome them, so today she's sharing with you her journey and how maybe you may find some important tips that could actually apply to you. You might resonate to some of these things, and also just to kind of share the awareness that even if you feel like you don't have mental health challenges, of which I believe most of us do, you live around people who have mental health challenges. So there's actually no drawback of being informed about this topic. But before we go any further, I just want to start off by thanking you for tuning in this episode and the previous 2 episodes that you probably tuned in, and to just say your support goes a long way. Your comments, your feedback, and all those little cute messages about Claudia, you're inspiring me. Please keep on going. Like, it's good for my mental health as well. So as I was sharing that, it's a very difficult topic to talk about because there's a lot. It's like, what do I share? What do I not share? And to be frank with you, I was really concerned about, I don't want it to be educational because you're Google away from finding out about everything, right? And I don't want it to sound like a boring class. So the drill was, I'm just going to share my story and my experiences, what I've read, what I've seen, the conversations I've had, provide a little bit of some stats, and we just keep it like that, fun and moving. So just to start off, how do I find myself with mental health issues? I've probably shared a little bit of this in the previous episodes, but just to take you a little bit back. I'm going to university, about 18 years old, and the shift is huge, right? From home, going to university for the first time, I'm away from home. I sort of have to take care of myself, figure out myself, my identity. Who am I? What do I want? And also trying to fit into a new environment, making friends. And then there's the other bit. I'm studying this program that I don't even know how I ended up studying agricultural economics, right? Trying to fall in love with this program and trying to think about what am I going to be doing even in the work sector? So there's a little bit of confusion, of isolation, of overthinking, of anxiety. I remember that one of the hardest things for me, I think it was finding a community within uni, finding friends. I felt a little bit left out, like I just wasn't fitting in. And the program that I'm studying, I'm trying to understand what exactly is agricultural economics. How do I resonate to this? And how do I later on go on to contribute in the community out there in the real world? And I'm reckoning that as a young person as well, you've probably had similar feelings, like I'm studying this thing, but I don't feel connected to it, or I don't feel passionate about it. Or you are trying to make friends and you struggle with fitting in, or you've probably made friends, but you have these feelings of, I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen, I don't feel like these people hear me, understand me, or I don't feel like we are talking about the things that matter, or I don't feel safe enough to trust them to open up or be vulnerable. It's some of the challenges that as young people we face, and which is why it is very important to be having these conversations as well. So then that kind of worry and confusion, including even with spirituality and religion, I'm at a position whereby I feel like I'm collapsing. It's hard. And, it goes deeper to even to the point whereby I don't feel supported. There's something that happens when you go to uni, whereby you get to experience other people and just observe. Some people are getting visited by their parents. Some people are just sitting there and they are receiving a call from a sibling. And you're realizing that, so people have relationships like that with their parents. You're realizing that people have relationships like that with their siblings. People have those communities where they can feel safe. And you sort of like reflect with your life as well. Like, there's so much I'm missing out on. I'm not able to have a community, people that care for me, people that miss for me, which boils down to the isolation. So I remember one time I'm in my room And it's very hard. I am reflecting on all of those things. And it's leading to a position whereby I'm experiencing self-harm. And it's something that you don't open up about. It's embarrassing as well. But it's like, how do I cope with all this pressure, with all of these emotions? I want to cry all the time. It's heavy. The world is not making sense to me. Actually, what am I doing in this world? What is my purpose? How is life supposed to be lived? And speaking of self-harm, the reason today I'm confident to even talk about it in these kinds of platforms is because I've had the opportunity to have conversations with a lot of people. And it's so sad and disheartening that more people are harming themselves more than you imagine. And by self-harm, I mean cutting ourselves. I mean indulging in substance abuse because we're trying to cope with our emotions. I mean having habits that actually do not aid into your growth. I mean negative thoughts. All of that is a part of self-harm because it's not contributing to your growth. Actually, when we talk about mental health, we're talking about a state of well-being, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, socially. We're talking about the ability to regulate your emotions. We're talking about the ability to make sound decisions. We're talking about the ability to immerse yourself in communities. And now, if that is not affected or is impaired or is not functioning well, all of those things are compromised. And hence, you're not able to live a well-lived, happy, and content life. So I'm finding myself in that position and there's nobody to talk to. We live in Africa where mental health help is more like a luxury. You can't even afford a therapist. And you try to open up maybe to a few people, for an example, siblings or parents, and they're like, get over it, or you're overthinking it, or or you're emotional. So there's moments where you actually try to go out, seek out help, but you get rejected, or you're not receiving that kind of attention. And when that happens, you go into your inner world where you start shrinking yourself, where you start, because the mind is going to wander and try to figure out solutions. But because you don't have the proper help, it goes wherever. That is when the pessimism starts. That is when the suicidal thoughts begin. That is when the self-destruction as well begins. That is when young people drop out of university. That is when they start joining gangs. That is when they start being abusive partners. That is when they start having dysfunctional relationships and friendships, So these are the detrimental parts of not having your mental health attended to, or not having the correct information on how to deal with these emotional challenges, mental health challenges, on how to regulate your emotions as well. So as I go into this deep, I'm like, I remember one time, I'm after actually harming myself, I'm like, you know what, if this is how life actually is, so sad and difficult and hard, I'm going to make this one conscious choice that I'm going to take it upon myself to live a happy life. I want to try it. If there's anything like happiness in this world, I want to try and be happy for once. Like, regardless of what happens in my life, I'm choosing that I am going to be happy. And I'm not going to make it depend on God, because I've been going to church. I've been trying to do everything by the book, but I'm still not happy. I'm still suffering. I'm still feeling alone. And I'm not going to make it reliant on how much my siblings love me or they show up for me. I'm not going to make it reliant on how much my parent shows up for me. I'm not going to make it reliant on how much I can get friends and loved. I am going to make my happiness reliant on me. And I'm like, this is the last time that I'm also harming myself. Okay? I'm going to live a well-lived life and be happy. So this is how the journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, enlightenment begins. I move on to isolate myself. And this is the beginning, that like, this is the other side of isolation that is beautiful, because you have time to self-reflect. You have time to understand yourself, your mind, your body, the world as well. So I move on. I remember I was staying inside Res at the campus. I move on to find a place outside of campus. And that is when I start my journey. I start reading books on psychology, self-development, and mental health. I start having non-negotiable habits. Speaking of non-negotiable habits, when you go onto my Instagram, on my Linktree link, Get to Know Me, there's a document there, leveling up daily towards greatness, that I created solely to help people with non-negotiables. There you will find things like meditations, like social interactions, like healthy diets, drinking water, physical activity, dancing, listening to music, reading, all of it's just to help you keep accountable and help you with taking care of yourself, wellness, mindfulness, and mental health. I'm developing these habits. I go jogging every day. I join a hiking group every weekend. I was going for hiking, and I was eating healthy. I was very mindful of the foods that I eat, and I was paying attention to little things as consciously and intentionally making friendships. So I see somebody at the hostel. I'm like, hi, how are you? If I cooked, hey, would you mind joining me for a meal today? I cooked a great meal, I consciously ask people to go for jogs with me. And then as well, I start a meditations group. I go into the dean's office. I'm like, you know what? I've been practicing meditations, and the suicides at the University of Eswatini are alarming. And I also want to help young people because I feel like it has helped me. I've been there. I've had suicidal thoughts. I've harmed myself. I've been anxious. I've been depressed. Now I want to help young people. And there's a little bit of challenge there because it's like, where are we going to get the quiet space for that? But I just push through. Eventually I get the space. I start a meditations group, and I am there. Whether one person shows up or 5 people show up, I am there. And, I reach out to one of my friends when I'm uni. I'm like, I need a logo. I need to promote this thing. So I'm posting it on WhatsApp. I go and print out A4 papers. We're sticking them at the notice boards. Like RealTalk Safe Spaces with Claudia is coming up, guys. Join meditations. It has a brief summary of what meditations are. And people showed up. People came to those meditation sessions. And with every session, this is what we do. I'd have a themed session whereby, for an example, we are talking about stoicism, about mindfulness, about community values. And then once we're done with that session, we start our meditations. And we would really change it. Sometimes we'd have sessions where I'm like, learn to be vulnerable and engage with other people. So we'd have sessions where we hug, we touch each other, or sometimes we speak. A person just shares one thing that they think they're good at or they are grateful for. And one of the things that you will notice is that people are even struggling to talk about themselves. To construct 5 sentences talking about yourself, it's hard. And then you notice that if the mere fact of talking about yourself, even your voice shakes, it's so difficult to construct a sentence. How many other areas of your life are being affected? How are you going to receive mental health help if you can't even talk about your problems? If you can't even boil them down into simple terms, how are you going to receive the help? How are you going to be able to sell yourself, to pitch your business idea? How are you going to speak even during an interview? So these things are just ripple effects of everything. They are so interconnected, and which is why having these conversations is important. Now, I just want to touch a little bit about things that are actually on the ground in Eswatini, in terms of how mental health is affecting us at large as communities. So there's a trending conversation about a man who stabs his 30-year-old girlfriend from Mahlabatini.
Sorry, Claudia.
Yes.
Sorry.
We have a question from the background. Yes.
Sorry. Before maybe you move on to the next chapter of your episode, I just wanted to, because I'm listening to you and there are quite a number of things that I'm relating to, and I'm thinking it is not this mental health challenge. It is literally our generation's challenge. It is not because at first it came out as if it was a thing like we're being petty, we're being peers or whatsoever. But literally, this is what we are dealing with, because it then shows up with those suicidals, with those hurting and whatsoever. But then as you were sharing your story, there's a part that I missed that I wish for you to maybe kind of like clarify, maybe for myself as well or for other people, because I don't think we get to the finish line of figuring out on how to take care of our mental health. So I just wanted to know, when then, yes, you realized that you were struggling and all that, and then you made efforts, you started reading books, you started doing that, you started meditation classes and whatsoever, you even invited other people. But what are the, probably say, I'll say 3 to 5 steps that made you actually realize that now you are standing up to take care of your mental health? Because I think what we also get to struggle with is that, yes, now but then before I get to even pick up the first book that is about mental health, what type of book, what type of place do I go to where I can be accessed? Who do I call? So I would love for you just to briefly maybe touch on those simple steps that will maybe help me or help whosoever that is listening to always fall back to try and recall to say, oh, now I'm missing this step, and this step is important.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the question. And that is actually a very good question. I just want to start off by bringing up that you're correct to say it's about the simple steps. And, one of the practices of therapy is that the best way to help someone who's struggling, it's starting off with the simplest thing, like you break it down to the simplest thing that they can do. And to start off, during my depressive phase, that being prolonged feelings of sadness, it starts off with the difficulty to even go out of bed. That's how hard it is. You don't even want to open your curtains. You lose appetite. You are pessimistic. You don't see things getting any better. You don't want to engage with other people. That is how deep and difficult it is. It is a very dark place that you're not hopeful, is not promising. And you feel like the worst thing that happened on the face of earth. But then to start off, it starts off by, first of all, paying attention to how you are feeling and being aware of it and accepting it, not brushing it off. Don't brush it off. Don't shift blame. Just go into your inner world and realize that I am struggling, or I am not happy, or I don't feel aligned. Things are not balancing. That's the first step. And then the next thing is why. Why are things like that? That is when the isolation helps, because you get to sit yourself and pay attention to, why exactly am I struggling? Is it because I have challenges with meeting ends meet? I have challenges with getting basic needs met? Is it because I'm struggling to find a potential suitor, somebody to love me? Is it because I'm struggling to get a job and hence making me feel insecure and, all the other things that come with the repercussions of being unemployed or not having money? Am I struggling with an insecurity? I don't like my body. I don't like my teeth. So it comes down to breaking down the challenge that you are having. What is my exact challenge? I don't have people to lean on to support me. Now, after realizing your main challenge, the next step is, what do I do to come out of this situation? And of course, it is difficult because the hardest thing is we don't have the readily available information. You don't go around and there's tips on how to deal with these problems. And also another thing that we're lacking is a community, which is all the things that I'll be delving into. So of course there are challenges to this, but the first thing is taking the accountability and taking things onto your own hands to say, how do I come out of this? For an example, I noticed that I am in the deep, I'm taking things to my hands, and I'm like, the first thing that's going to work for me, I need to be in a space that allows me to be myself. I move out of rest, because rest is like there's a lot of people. I don't even have the space in my room to pay attention to the things that are hurting me. I go on to find space where I can be isolated. I go on to say, I want to change my habits and find out what could help me. I have the curiosity. So when you have the curiosity, try to find the answers. Google, talk to people, ask them the questions, okay? Facilities, institutions like the university, they have the health department or career guidance departments. Go there and try to talk to someone. They'll give you the tips, okay? Or another thing, another very good tip that works is if you realize that you have a challenge, pick other people that you think or they seem to be experiencing the same challenge. Have a conversation with them. That is a starting point where you have the common ground. And then you'll get to realize that I'm not alone in this. And then it diminishes the problem. And then from there, first of all, you feel heard. Part of the healing process, the basic part of the healing process is feeling heard. Secondly, we talked about this, stoicism, your innate ability to solve problems through reason. Most of the time you find that the struggle is not having someone who can solve the problems for us or give us advice. The struggle is having someone that we can talk about these things with, feel heard and understood and supported, validated. After that, you have your innate ability to solve your own problems. So half the cure is just talking about the thing. So when you look at the practice of therapy, I was listening to Jordan Peterson and he talks about how in therapy, helping the person, the therapist doesn't give you advice. They listen, they guide you with questions. And then while you are talking and contradicting yourself and trying to discern what is the problem, you reach to your own solution. You reach to your own solution to, this is what I need to do to solve the problem. We've all been endowed with the gift to solve our own problems. So that is to say, me going into my inner world, I tapped into the ability to solve my own problems. And also having conversations with other people, the community, listening to other people's struggles, and then they're sitting like, I thought I had problems. There are people who have problems. And even those people that actually have problems, when they talk to other people, they get to realize that, no, I thought I had problems, but there are people who have problems. So that's just how it is. Go into your inner world, be curious about finding answers, and be so good at executing. Once you find the answers, be so good at applying those solutions, those answers. So just elaborating a little bit deeper on that, moving on. There's a man who kills his girlfriend. And while I'm reading the article, the first thing that pops up in my head is that this is the inability to regulate emotions. Fine, she's cheating. You feel betrayed. This person is failing to regulate their own emotions. They are feeling the anger, right? They're probably triggered. It probably triggers a feeling of betrayal, of abandonment, something that happened in their childhood, blah, 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 blah. It goes on. But the most important thing that we need to pay attention to is the inability to regulate emotions. And it is challenging because we're not having these conversations in our communities. We're not getting enough help to deal with mental health issues. And from his end, it's probably a lack of information and awareness, right? And which is why we're having this conversation today. Now, I want to talk about regulating emotions. How do I regulate emotions? This is something that was very paramount for me during my self-development journey. Meditations is to start off. The first step to you learning how to regulate your emotions is meditations. Because through a meditation, you learn to regulate your nervous system. You learn to regulate your body. And you also learn to tap into your logic. So one of the things that I read while reading What Happened to You by Dr. Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey is that when you're emotional, the cortex, which is the frontal part of your brain responsible for reasoning, for logic, for intellect, it shuts down, which is why when a person is undergoing through a traumatic experience or is angry, they say, I wasn't thinking straight. When you could ask them what is 1 + 1, they probably wouldn't be able to answer to that. It's because the front part of your brain, which is smart, it shuts down. And then the limbic part, which is responsible for the sensory things like feeling, like taste, like touch and all of that, is active, right? So when you are emotional, you act on impulse. Meditation helps you to regulate that and open up the front part of your brain that is responsible for intellect, that is responsible for wisdom, that is responsible for gauging what is wrong and right, what is responsible for comparing between past experiences and present experiences, that is responsible for understanding, I'd be breaking the law if I do this. So for us, let us practice the meditation a little bit. This was my plan for today. So sit up straight, be comfortable, be in a comfortable position. And by the way, I'm saying sit up straight because I'm sitting right now. This is something that you could do when you're laying on your bed, before bed, or in any comfortable position. The most important thing is to be comfortable, making your body feel safe and comfortable. Sit up straight. This is a meditation session now. Let's get into the rhythm. Take a huge breath in through your nose and allow your body to rise with you as you do this. Rise with your body. Feel the air go in through your nose, straight to your lungs, and slowly close your eyes. I'm going to close my eyes as well. So we breathe in. You hold your breath. As you hold your breath, think of the oxygen going in and purifying you. Feel the life inside you. Feel your lungs opening up. Feel the air going through your body. Imagine how it's going through your veins, oxygenating you, purifying you. And then you slowly release through your mouth. Hear yourself sigh as you breathe out through your mouth. And as you breathe out slowly through your mouth, imagine all the worry, the anxiety, the sadness, the fatigue, the sickness, the trauma, the shame, the insecurity, the self-pity, the imposter syndrome, the doubt. Feel all of it leaving your body. And feel your body achieve a state of relaxation. Feel the safety in your body. And as you do this, your brain may wander a little. It may go like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do? This meditation thing is stupid. This meditation thing will not solve your financial problems. This meditation thing will not bring back your dead parents. The meditation thing will not clear your reputation. The meditation thing will not help you settle well in your career. It's wandering off, showing you all the problems and the challenges. Do not fight that. Do not brush it off. Listen. It's your brain trying to help you find out your challenges, your worries, and help you solve problems. It's your brain breaking down what is truly worrying you. And through finding the problem, it's the only way that you can start finding the solutions. So listen as your brain and your body communicate with you. And once you reach the end of your ripple thoughts, Center yourself back by breathing in, focusing on your breath again and again and again. So let's breathe in again. Hold your breath. Slowly release. Slowly open your eyes now while breathing. How is that? You did an exceptionally amazing job at loving yourself today. That is what self-love is. That is what taking care of your body is. That is what loving your body is. That is what realizing and being grateful for your brain and your body is. It's saying, I'm taking care of you. I'm appreciating you for all the work that you do to make sure that I'm a functional being. I'm healthy. You're providing me with solutions. You're helping me plan. That's how you thank your body. So to start off, that is how you regulate your emotions, all right? And through that practice, you'll be able to pick what is within and outside of your control. Again, stoicism. You'll be able to pick what is wrong and right, what works and doesn't work. That is how the discernment and the wisdom happens, all right? Now, let's move on to talk about something else, the isolation, which is one of the major reasons that I believe we're depressed today. We lack communities. Probably because our parents are always at work. We can't have conversations with them. Probably because we have a difficulty making friendships. Probably because times are changing. You know, I grew up in a township and parents are afraid of us going out because we'll learn bad habits from other people. So we're always isolated and in the house. So we are deprived of actual communities, people to talk to. Nowadays, we don't have aunts sitting us down and telling us what it means to be a woman, uncles telling us what it means to be a man, advising us on etiquette, on a well-lived life, on purpose. So we're so curious, we have so many questions that are left unanswered, right? I was reading the newspaper, the local newspaper, and it was talking about the rising gangs. Am I 26? Am I 27? Am I 28? 26, they are recruiting young people in schools right now, recruiting them for gangs. And children start stealing even from their parents. And then they have to report on weekends on their gang leaders. Am I 27? They rob people to the extent that they can even stab them. Am I 28? They rob people even at night. And the alarming thing for me when I was reading the article is that they even intentionally start crossing the law so that they can go back to jail to regroup. Guys, do you understand? Do you understand what is happening? Parents, do you understand what is happening? Peers, do you understand what is happening on the ground? Now, things that I zoomed into while I was reading that article that kept on coming back and again and again. Community. These people are lacking a community. And if they're going to lack healthy communities, bad communities are available and they are going to accept them. They have tattoos. They have a mission. They have values in those communities. They feel accepted. And it doesn't matter that in those communities, the day you leave these communities and whatnot. These people, they feel like they're a part of a belonging. You understand? And while reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, a community is such a huge thing. You know, Viktor Frankl talks about how during the World War I and World War II, those were very difficult situations. You know, you don't have access to basic needs, healthy food and whatnot. But the fact that you are suffering with other people, that's a community, you know? And your main mission is to make it through to the next day, right? I was listening to Trevor Noah having a conversation with Stephen Bartlett, and he was bringing up the fact that there are people that war was their purpose, right? We are fighting for our country. And there are people that they are in war because we are against war. It's a community. They have shared values. They have a mission. They have purpose. They understand why they are living. So with the lack of communities, I want to advise that it's important for all of us to find ourselves a community. I always bring up how in my journey, friendship played such a pivotal role into me actually achieving healthy mental health, good mental health, because you have someone that sometimes you can't sleep at night because of anxiety. And you could message them or you could call them and be like, I'm feeling suicidal right now. And they're there to say, I'm in the pits as well. Or, no, it's okay. You're going to be fine. Breathe. The fact that you have someone listening to you, And then I go on to join this hiking group. You're with other people there. One of my fears is I have a fear of heights. And you're with people who are there to support you, to say, Claudia, breathe. You're not going to die. Walk like this. They're hand holding you. They're rubbing you. They're touching you. You feel like you have a belonging. You belong somewhere. There are people that care for you. You are in a relationship. You have someone who is responsive to you, to your emotional needs, who makes you feel loved. Dr. Perry talks about how the way that we have been loved shapes our ability to love. That is how important communities are. And he actually goes on to talk about how if people were feeling loved and there were these communities, it would even appeal to the people's empathy, which means we'd have less gang violence. We'd have less wars because people would be empathetic. So I just want to talk on the importance of communities. Another thing that I want to talk about nowadays, which is a new struggle, is social media. A lot of us are depressed because we see these people, young people who are like making it, who are buying cars, who are having apartments, who are in happy relationships, who afford to go on vacations. And speaking of social media, LinkedIn, you go there, you are scrolling, people already have 2 degrees. People are getting hired and you're sitting here and you're like, I'm feeling left out. And on social media, I want to address a couple of things. Social media shows one angle of a person's life. There are many layers to a human being. So to compare yourself against that one layer that a person is intentionally showing you because they are proud of it or they're feeling good about it is not enough evidence for you to make an assumption that you're not doing well in life. You understand? And it's very rare that you'll come across people on social media who are probably like Claudia, who will talk about their mental health difficulties. Okay? A lot of people are showing versions of themselves that they want you to see on social media. So it's not a good grounds to gauge your standard of living at. In fact, your standard of living is what is off camera. It's finding a partner who can see you, listen to you, someone that you can talk to, someone that you feel happy. When you are happy, you can talk to. When you are sad, you feel safe enough to talk to. Your standard is not having friends that you can plan an expensive vacation with. It's having friends that you can call when you've scored a gig, or you can call when you're in the deep. Your standard is not finding the highest paying job or those 2 degrees. Your standard is doing meaningful work. Speaking of meaningful work, coming into this podcast, this studio, everyone is literally forking out of their pocket, out of their time to making this work. And what do they get out of that? Fulfillment, contributing into community. And if in the long run, that reward is money, kudos, right? But the most important thing is about the value that you're bringing to the world. It's about the contributions. It's about how you spend your time. It's about the growth that happens out of this, right? So another thing, speaking on social media, is gratitude, which is heavily advocated for by Stoicism. And I would say that this is not maybe the healthiest outlook, but I would say that if you see that there's somebody on social media frustrating you because it looks like they're in a happy relationship, first of all, you don't know what it takes to be in that relationship. They're probably compromising a lot. They're probably compromising a person who snores at night, which is something that you can't pull up with, that you can't deal with. They're probably tolerating someone who has poor communication skills, but they're working with what they have, where they are. And maybe when you see somebody like that, try to be like, oh, well, they're in a happy relationship, but at least I have good friends. Or at least I have a supportive mother, or at least I'm healthy. Like, always try to counter that, whatever that is making you anxious and jealous, with what do I have in my life? I keep a gratitude journal. And speaking of a gratitude journal, one time I was followed by your girl Z on Instagram. I went down on my gratitude journal to write that down because I felt that bip in my heart, to say that is making me feel good. That is making me feel recognized in the social media space. I mean, she has so many followers. She's doing so good in her own area as well. I look up to, she's the kind of a lady that I'm like, one day I wish to do that. I wish to be like that. I don't know the many layers that are happening in her life, but there are certain things that are inspiring me that are happening in her life. And the fact that she recognized me enough to follow me, I'm journaling that, Somebody reaches out on Instagram to say, Claudia, keep on creating that content. I'm inspired. It has helped me in that way. I'm journaling that, The fact that I have a family to call and check on, I journal that. Like, journal the simplest, mundane things. Your brain starts getting attuned to paying attention to positivity. And one day you start off with 5 things, and one day you realize that you're writing so many things that you're grateful for, which is consequently alleviating the quality of your life. And you'll be so shocked of how much grace you are, of how much privileged you are. Speaking of privilege, I have friends that are living in Eswatini as refugees. And do you know how hard it is to live in a country and feeling that feeling of otherness, of xenophobia, of being discrimination, all of those things. And maybe you probably don't have to go through that. That is one area to be grateful for. So keep a gratitude journal. And another area that I want to touch on is unemployment.
Sorry, Claudia, again.
Sorry, this seems like it's going to be a long episode, but it's fun,
okay, I'll keep this one short.
Yes.
Okay, I'm so interested in the idea of social media because I think it's something that we have as part of our lives now. We are a generation that has social media. We cannot do away with that. So we then have to find a way of living with that or coping with that. But then now there's this thing that I think happened. Okay, first I will try to just echo what you were talking about. I think what happened that led us to being like this with social media is that we were first conditioned, we were first trained when social media came to the picture. We were trained to draw into it. We're trained how it is fun, how it's supposed to do, and everything. So then that training led us to thinking that such is life, which is not the case. Then now we're living in the time where we now think or we know such to be life when it's not the case. Then now, how do we condition ourselves out of that? That's my number one question. How do we condition ourselves out of that? I mean, things like, how do we practice things like your social media detox? How do we even keep, I understand you've been emphasizing on the gratitude journal, that we can look at things on social media and be grateful about it, all that. But then how do we even get to an extent of even keeping a balance to say, this is much that I should consume, now I shall stop, and all those type of things, because it is a part of our lives.
Absolutely.
After all, we cannot then get rid of it. I'm just trying to get to understand your perspective in as far as that is concerned. I hope it was short enough.
Well, we can work with that. It's the meaningful conversations. Good question. First of all, I want to start off by saying, 1, on social media, be aware that people are posting a version of themselves that they want you to see. Secondly, people are posting for different reasons. Some people it's promotional. Some people are earning through posting those kinds of things. So be mindful of that. Mindful consumption. Thirdly, is if you start feeling like what you see on social media is making you depressed, or you're seeing a lot of negative comments, or how biased the world is, injustice, other happy people, feel free to uninstall your app and spend time reading books, and spend time taking walks, and spend time having conversation with people in real time on self-development. And then when you go back there, mindful consumption, what are you consuming? Are you following any pages on self-development? Are you following any pages on wellness, on mindfulness? Don't just consume the influencer material when you know that it's negatively impacting you. Don't just follow pages that are on gossip, on hate. What you consume, you become. So mindful consumption. Literally, my algorithm, all it is quotes from Stoics, is therapists, is because that is what I'm interested in. And probably this is why I'm having these conversations today. So it's just understanding of that and the gratitude, as we already mentioned. And also, in this life, don't just consume. Try to be a creator as well. Try to put out something as well. Try to focus on your life as much as you focus on. It's a balance. It's about finding the sweet spot, because depression is basically either zooming in on how effed up your life is, or zooming in on how other people are doing so well and comparing your life against that. So try to have a balance of everything. Mindful consumption, and use it for yourself. I'm using social media to grow my brand, to spread the information about mental health. See how you can use social media to your advantage. Maybe for business ideas. Look up other entrepreneurs, how they are doing it, to find inspiration. There's many ways to consume content, So I hope that answers your question. And moving on, I was talking about unemployment. About 65% of the youth of Eswatini is unemployed when you look at the stats, which is grounds enough for young people to be depressed. We all want nice things. We all want to have a job. One of the reasons that I normally say money is important is because it's able to forge a lifestyle, a nice lifestyle. It's able to buy us security. I remember in class, one of the things I've learned while learning economics is that poverty reaps human of dignity. And I think that's the worst drawback of not having money. So it's grounds enough to be depressed. But one of the things that I want to drive forward is, first of all, mindset, resilience, and the quality of hard work. Do something. There's a quote, I think, from the Bible that says, "An idle mind is the devil's workshop." Being idle, the suicidal thoughts are going to kick in. Being idle, you'll be pessimistic. Being idle, you're not going to be inspired to have ideas. So I would like to drive forward the importance of hard work. And, speaking of numbers, let us spin this a little bit and make it fun. Okay? Let us make this a little bit of fun. All right. I just want to bring in a couple of stats. So let's tune this up. All right. So this is how it's going to go. Welcome to the daily, let's put it like this. Yeah. Welcome to the Stats and Facts by RealTalk with Claudia. Here we are diving deep into the stats and facts of what is happening on the actual ground when it comes to mental health and mental health challenges. So according to the Comprehensive Mental Health Action Plan 2013 to 2030, mental health is conceptualized as the state of well-being in which individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with normal life stresses, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And the people that are normally affected by these challenges are vulnerable groups, including members of households living in poverty, people with chronic health conditions, infants and children exposed to maltreatment and neglect, adolescents first exposed to substance abuse, minority groups, indigenous populations, older people, people experiencing discrimination and human rights violations, lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender persons, prisoners, and people exposed to conflict, natural disasters, and humanitarian emergencies. Now, why are we bringing this up? It's because we have alarming, staggering stats. Depression alone accounts for 4.3% of global burden of disease and is among the largest single causes of disability worldwide. 11% of all years lived with disability globally, and particularly for women. And listen to this, the consequences of these health losses are equally as large. There's a study estimated that the cumulative global impact of mental health disorders in terms of lost economic output will amount to $16.3 trillion US dollars between 2011 and 2030. That is how much we are losing in terms of money, just because of unattended mental health problems. And let's move on. Between 76 and 85% of people with severe mental health disorders receive no mental health treatment, and the annual spending is less than $2 per person and less than $0.25 per person in low-income countries. And this is the other disappointing fact, is that in low-income earning countries, there's about one psychiatrist that is meant to help about 200,000 people. Aside from the fact that with regards to other mental health issues, people who are qualified to address them, they're even scarcer. So definitely we are having a challenge, and which is why having these conversations, having these kinds of platforms is a necessity. And, the reason that I'm bringing up these actual stats is because aside from this podcast helping you as a young person who's probably facing mental health issues, the people who are going to probably see this podcast, they can influence policies. They are part of programs. And it's just to bring into the awareness of how important it is. And it is as important as addressing as other disasters that we're currently addressing, So if you have the ability to influence policies or programs, do support people who are behind such kinds of podcasts. Do support small organizations like the Save a Soul Foundation in UNESCO that is helping young people with mental health issues and, having access to the basic necessary needs. So I just wanted to share that. And just for you young people, in terms of communities, to share that in Eswatini, we have so many groups that you can affiliate yourself with. Look them up online. Actually, if you Google youth empowerment programs in Eswatini, you'll have a long list. Likusasa Lethu, Luvati Youth Empowerment, Young Mother Support Group, SWAGA, Junior Achievement, Eswatini Sexual and Gender Minorities, Swaziland Youth Network, Young Heroes, Eswatini Youth Empowerment Program by the UNDP. Do you go to Uni Logo? It's empowering young creatives as well. Go to the Tinkundla. There are always programs there to help young people. And consume content on mental health as well. So this is just a few organizations that I wanted to share with you. Before I started working, I volunteered with IYF in Manzini as well. So those are just all the things that we wanted to bring into your attention in this podcast. Guys, I've been going on and on and on and on as usual, because there's so much to address when it comes to this. But more than anything, I hope it was insightful. I hope it was educational. And, if you have anything to share, please feel free to share in the comment section on YouTube and Instagram, because you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's reading those comments, and you don't know at what stage of life they're in. Probably your comment, probably your personal story, probably your personal views is going to be helpful to them. It's probably going to save a soul. It's probably going to provide an actionable tip. It's probably going to make somebody feel like, oh, I'm not the only one who's experiencing this, So up and onwards with the comments, with the engagement. And so normally we end our podcast, as you know, with a quote. Before we end, in the background, any question?
Not that I can think of, but just to maybe, I don't know if it's too much too soon, maybe to highlight that you are also working on bringing back that meditation, and I'm kind of like part of that, and I'm excited. So I don't know, too much too soon?
We are cooking. Well, it's we need to start promoting it. So we are cooking. A meditations group is coming up ahead. It's a great platform from a community. And as I was saying, those people influencing policies and whatnot, do think of us, guys. We're available as young people to offer ourselves. We are looking for sponsorships, for funding, for partnering, for engaging stakeholders. So your support is definitely going to go a long way. And speaking of which, we are in the near future going to be inviting experts. Today, we're just talking from a perspective of Claudia's perspective and journey. We are going to be inviting experts to share a little bit of more insights when it comes to mental health and what is actually happening in the ground in the kingdom of Eswatini. So yeah, as we were saying, we always end our podcast with a quote. And today's quote is, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom," by Socrates, a philosopher. And this gels well with our topic today, because if we understand ourselves, we'll become wiser. We'll have a well-lived life. And it is the biggest remedy to fighting mental health challenges. Knowing thyself being understanding your core values, your beliefs, your motivations, your psychology, and your aspirations, and all of that. So know yourself. Okay? All right, guys. So that is it for the third episode of Real Talk with Claudia. Once again, we are looking forward to having you again and again and again in this podcast. And I just want to wish you happy festive seasons coming ahead. Have a happy Christmas. This is a time to be talking to that parent that is always triggering you. This is the time to be bringing up all your traumas and triggers and, getting to know each other deeper, like have in-depth conversations, And also stay safe, guys. Stay safe, be safe. Make sure to enjoy, make sure to buy yourself a little gift, rewarding yourself for being alive to this point. And also to say, do like, share, subscribe, hit that notifications bell so that you know whenever we release an episode, and talk about us, talk about Real Talk with Claudia, watch with your friends, and recommend. Otherwise, that is it from Claudia. I'm done now here. How was that, guys?